Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories podcast. It looks like we're releasing 2 episodes in the same day. I hope that's not too much for y'all. It is January 25th, 2024. I am here with my colleague, Gerardo Sumano. Hey, Gerardo, how you doing?
Hi, doing good. Give me 1 second. Sorry,
Oh,
technical
no
glitch.
problem. We are here to address a really important topic. We've titled this Mormons Are Confused Right Now. The Mormon Church is doing a lot of things really interesting regarding its LGBTQ policies. Specifically, we covered just a week or two ago the Mormon Church calling as a new head of communications a man who has a long, I guess, multi-year history of supporting same-sex marriage, of supporting, of celebrating the Supreme Court decision to legalize same-sex marriage, of attending pride parades, of supporting gender transitioning and the correct usage of pronouns, and then they hire this man to become the new head chief spokesman for the church. And whether it's Greg Mattson of Quick YouTube channel or Jacob Hansen of the A Thoughtful Faith YouTube channel, or even Cardin Ellis and Kwaku of Ward Radio or Midnight Mormons, however they're calling themselves these days. There's a lot of confusion amongst conservative Orthodox, I'll say even fundamentalist Mormons, on what this all means. I think there's a genuine fear and concern that the Mormon Church is slipping. It's becoming more liberal. It's becoming more progressive. It's becoming more tolerant of LGBT people, and it's becoming more inclusive. And that has a lot of conservative Mormons and YouTubers concerned, specifically Jacob Hansen. And so Gerardo reached out, and we decided we needed to cover this, and specifically Jacob, a recent video by Jacob. Gerardo, make sure your video is on high def. I'm not sure if you checked that in the StreamYard settings, but Gerardo, welcome back to Mormon Stories. It's been a while. Where have you been?
Just working on the background a little bit on the thumbnails and stuff. Taking a rest a little bit from podcasting, but I'm glad to be back.
Okay. Well, it's great to have you.
As you saw with the technical glitch at the beginning, but hopefully it'll go smoother.
Well, why don't we give you the floor? I gave a little bit of an intro while you were getting set up, but what do you want to say as by way of introduction?
Well, yeah, I think when I saw that video, I usually don't watch Jacob Hansen's YouTube channel that much, but I can't remember if you were the one that sent it to me. And I watched it and I was like, oh, I agree with him probably in 80% of that video. So I thought maybe it would be interesting to do a response and have his opinions expressed here on the podcast. I think there's a lot of ironic things that he brings up to light, and so we're just going to be discussing them, and I'm pretty excited. It's a topic that it's dear to my heart, LGBT issues in the church. So yeah, I think I'm ready to dive into it.
Yeah, and I'll just say I am very much in support of open dialogue, of even bringing on people who are critical. I've avoided really showcasing Cardin Ellis or Kwaku from Ward Radio or Midnight Mormons and this Jacob Hansen guy, just because they in my opinion, they have a history of lying, of misrepresenting things we say. I don't mind constructive criticism or healthy dialogue. I just think there's sometimes when you go beyond the pale and are unethical, that I'm not interested in giving you a platform. So I think there's a part of me that would have been fine never ever mentioning Jacob Hansen's name on the podcast. Maybe Gerardo, share why you think this is important, if you're willing.
Well, like I said, I think this is a very important topic. I think how the church, I mean, the video that we're gonna play from him is him addressing this confusion that maybe, I don't know if I should say mainstream or conservative Mormons are having right now, where they're seeing something said from the pulpit as far as what the church stances are on LGBT issues and other things, and then seeing something different played out in the words and stakes in at least in the US, right? By local leaders. And I think there are some really shocking things that were a little bit interesting that he brought up to light, and that you and I, John, have been discussing on the background for a bit. So I thought maybe this was going to be a really good opportunity to talk about them. And then yeah, what's interesting about Jacob Hansen is that his podcast is called A Thoughtful Faith, and he doesn't really use his name on the name of his video. So it'll be interesting when people Google his Jacob Hansen now. This video is probably going to be at the top there on the YouTube searches. That'll be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I think a couple things just really quickly for me. I think number one, we've been covering LGBTQ issues literally since like 2005 on Mormon Stories podcast. Gerardo, you've been living LGBTQ issues in Mormonism for how long?
29 years now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then also just over the past 5 or 10 years, we've been predicting a schism in the church. The church has always kind of gone after progressive and liberal Mormons. I was excommunicated in 2015, in part because of my public support of same-sex marriage in my TED Talk, where I recommended that the church be more supportive of same-sex marriage. This is an old topic for us, but a very critical and important one. It's interesting. We'll be talking about this. It's interesting to see now that this conservative wing of the church that they've been hesitant to crack down on, to discipline, is now starting to turn on the church leaders and criticize the church leaders. And this includes Greg Mattson of Quick Podcast YouTube channel, and even potentially Kwaku and potentially Jacob Hansen. So I feel sorry that they feel. I saw one comment, and this is kind of funny. We welcome our viewers and listeners. Jake Williams writes, I think Jacob is suffering from priesthood dysphoria. I think that's a funny comment. We do want to welcome our viewers and listeners. We are live streaming. Please subscribe to this channel. Please share your comments and questions and experiences, and we would love to share them throughout the episode. We're always grateful for those who donate to Mormon Stories and the Open Stories Foundation at mormonstories.org. Your donations make all this possible. You're the backbone of what we do. And then also, we always appreciate the super chats when they come in. So anyway, I guess in some ways we feel sorry for Jacob Hansen, that he feels sad that the brethren are confusing and maybe abandoning his position. And it's like you said, it's a rare opportunity where we agree with much of what Jacob Hansen and others like him are saying, because it is confusing. And so, should we just roll the video and respond to it?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. So the YouTube channel is A Thoughtful Faith. Jacob Hansen stole that name. That name comes from a book edited by Phil Barlow called A Thoughtful Faith. And then we had a podcast under the Open Stories Foundation for many years called A Thoughtful Faith. And he literally stole it and called his YouTube channel A Thoughtful Faith. So I just wanted to call that out because it's factual. I'm sure he did that on purpose, but I'm sure he has paid SEO consultants funded by nonprofits, funded by wealthy church members, telling him to do things like that to try and swallow up the past episodes of A Thoughtful Faith. I'm speculating there, but that's my opinion. Anyway, this is on the A Thoughtful Faith YouTube channel, and the video is entitled "Can We Go On Like This?" So I mean that right off the bat, Gerardo, what do you think about that title? Isn't that kind of an extreme title? Can we go on like this? What do you think?
Yeah, kind of giving the church an ultimatum, huh? And also, well, I think as we're going to discuss, it's interesting that he's just realizing a problem that we've been highlighting on Mormon Stories, or you've done, John, for many years. But he's experiencing it for the first time for some reason. So
Yeah, he's just confused right now in 2024. And under Can We Go On Like This? He says the church is now allowing men to be baptized as women. I'm so confused. So that's what he wrote in the description. Anyway, let's go ahead and roll the video, and we'll pause. Tell me when you want me to pause, Gerardo. And we also welcome our viewers and listeners to make comments, and we'll show your views and comments throughout the episode. All right, let's start with his high quality production value. He's got a disclaimer there.
So I have to admit, this is a video I seriously considered not releasing, but I've met so many people like me who feel confused. And I took
real quick, Gerardo, why do you think he's seriously considered not releasing this video?
But it's on the edge of criticizing the brethren, I think.
I mean, I was excommunicated in part for criticizing the brethren. We all take temple vows as Mormons to never speak ill of the Lord's anointed. And again, Greg Mattson from Quick and this guy, Jacob Hansen, I don't know what he's doing if this isn't criticizing the brethren, but he should be very afraid. I think he should be very afraid because the brethren don't like being criticized, and he's covenanted in the temple to not criticize the brethren. Right.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about this. You know how Bill Reel has oftentimes, I mean, you've said, John, that Bill, one of the reasons why he was excommunicated was because he called Elder Holland a liar, but he would show, this is what Elder Holland said. Well, this is what he said later, with, and showing discrepancies. I don't think that's too far away from what Jacob is about to do here. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm also going to add, if you watched our interview from earlier this week or last, Greg Mattson from Quick, and that's CWIC YouTube channel, he kept saying in his video where he was expressing concern, I'm not checking the church. I don't want to check the church. I'm not checking the brethren. Like, when you make a YouTube video telling the world that you feel like the brethren are contradicting the church doctrine and theology, how is that not criticizing or checking the brethren? It's interesting that they have to tell us they're not criticizing the brethren as they criticize the brethren.
Yes. Yeah, for
second guess. Yeah. Like, how about just be quiet and let the brethren do their job and not make YouTube videos that tens of thousands of people watch? That's one idea. Is that an idea? That's one idea.
You will believe they're inspired, right? Like,
you just shut the freak up and let them do their job and quit second guessing them and spreading your apostasy, your apostate questions all over the internet to the entire world. That's one suggestion. Take it from someone who knows what happens, how this ends. Jacob Hansen. I'll just say that one more time, Jacob Hansen. Take it from someone who knows how this ends. Okay. All right. So you were probably right to consider not releasing this. You probably should have gone with that, I'm guessing. Okay.
Took comfort in hearing Elder Oaks read a letter that I believe capture what so many members are feeling confused about.
I just received a valuable letter from a 16-year-old girl who lives in a state where we have few members. I will call her Amy. Her letter is important because she expresses feelings that are common in young people all across the church. Amy's lengthy letter includes these portions. I've asked one of your peers to read her words.
I feel like I sometimes get inconsistent and confusing messages from the church. In my day-to-day life, I see members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on social media act as if they aren't part of this gospel. I feel like I'm the only young woman in my ward who sees the things I see wrong with the world. I truly don't understand why so many youth in our church don't see any problem with people changing their gender every other day, dating people who are the same sex or identify as no gender. At ward or stake youth activities, I am asked my pronouns, or at school, I am asked to dance with a girl who thinks she is a boy. I know we are supposed to love everyone and show them respect, and I always do. I just feel that there is a line being crossed. I wish we heard more talk from church leaders about this problem.
I have to admit, this letter also impacts.
I have to ask you, do you think there's any chance that is a real letter?
I mean, yeah, I think it probably is a real letter. What I thought was interesting is the letter says that the lady on the letter says that she feels like she's the only one in the word who feels that way.
I mean,
Basically,
that would
admitting that the rest of the word is compassionate and caring towards LGBT people.
that's fascinating. Which would make the brethren worried and probably explains
Right.
why the church is pivoting on this issue and hiring a PR spokesman that's LGBTQ affirming, because the church membership is getting out ahead of the brethren on this issue, and now they're
Right.
playing damage control. Really quickly, Gerardo, w- what do you think about Oakes sharing this letter and this story as as an apostle, as a member of the First Presidency?
I mean, I think it's what you just said. He's concerned. He's concerned that that the words in the church are going too progressive. And I think it's something that the church is having a hard time to manage, right? Like you want to tell the members that they should love everybody, that they should respect what everybody wants to be identified as per the handbook of instructions, but then you're worried that they're going to be too supportive, which is kind of like the fine line that Elder Holland tried to walk in his musket fire talk that ended up blowing up. But I mean, it's a hard line to walk, I think.
Yeah. Well, some in the comments wonder whether a minor really wrote that letter. I thought it was weird they weren't showing her face. They don't have even an actor reading. They just show the back of the head of the girl as if she's reading. I think that's interesting. And again, I'm just going to tell Jacob, if members are confused, why do you keep stoking the confusion, Jacob Hansen? It seems like you're making it worse. You're not making it better by making YouTube videos. All right, let's keep rolling.
Right.
Impacted me because so many others feel the exact same way. And so today I am making this video and using my talents to hopefully give expression to the confusion that so many of us feel, with the hope that our leaders can help us to make sense of this and provide clarity.
All right. Do you have a thought on that? I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, I just think as soon as you set yourself up to be a voice of the disgruntled in the church, you're literally sticking your head out to be chopped off. Don't you think? Like, I, Jacob Hansen, represent the confused members of the church, because there's no other way for you, the church leaders, to hear what they feel and what they're concerned about. So let me be the spokesperson. I'm just telling you, red alert, Jacob Hansen, you are offering your head on the chopping block.
Well, what is his intent on this video? That's a question that I kept asking myself the entire time, right? And I still can't come up with the answer. If he is concerned and he feels like he needs to warn the brethren about what's going on, why is he not writing a letter like this lady did and sending it to Elder Oakes? Why is he doing a video that's going to go out to tens of thousands of members? I don't know. It's kind of confusing.
Yeah. Also, doesn't he believe that the brethren talk to God and Jesus? Like, doesn't he sustain them as prophets, seers, and revelators who are special witnesses of Christ? And if the brethren, the First Presidency, the Quorum of the 12, if they speak to God and Jesus, why in the fetch do they need Jacob Hansen telling them, even correcting them or bringing something to their attention? Clearly God's guiding what they do and what they say. Why
Right.
does Jacob Hansen have anything to add?
Yeah.
Can someone help me understand that?
That would be that would be a good question for Jacob.
It shows a lack of faith in God, Jesus, and the special witnesses of Christ, that somehow they can't communicate effectively. So Jacob needs to help them,
Right.
I don't know. Is that unfair?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, and how is he helping, right? Because it just seems like he's stirring the pot.
Exactly. He's stirring the pot. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's keep going.
I want to start with some fairly recent events that took place in Arizona, where a man who dresses like a woman was placed on the official records of the church as a woman.
Welcome, listener.
Gerardo, I think you had a really good, important point about his language there. Do you want to make that point?
Yeah.
And I'll pull up the slide.
It sounds like Jacob is not respecting these transgender persons' pronouns and how they are deciding to identify themselves. So something that is pretty interesting in the handbook of instructions of the church. The policy, while there's some bigotry there, of course, for example, members are discouraged to transition, and medical treatments are discouraged, and also there's kind of like a threat for church membership restrictions. There are some quite progressive things in the handbook of instructions. One of them being this section that says if a member
And for those who want to
Yeah,
reference it, it's section 38.6.23, entitled transgender individuals in the church handbook of instructions as of January 25th, 2024. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and this paragraph, second paragraph here, it says if a member decides to change his or her preferred name or pronouns of address, the name preference may be noted in the preferred name field on the membership record, and the person may be addressed by the preferred name in the word. So it's allowing members to use the correct pronouns and the preferred name of transgender people. And here Jacob Hansen is for some reason not doing that, but it sounds a little bit like he's mocking this person as well.
Yeah. It sounds like he's defying church policy. He's disobeying church policy. Is that fair?
I agree.
And he's being unkind, right? Which you would think if you swear allegiance in covenant under Jesus Christ's church, you're gonna look to kindness as your guiding rule, your guiding light, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, transgender people who are misgendered, who are referred to by the wrong names, who are called the wrong gender, that is extremely upsetting and unsafe for them. And he should know that by now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So do better, Jacob Hansen, if you claim to follow the church and Christ. Yeah. All right.
Like a woman, was placed on the official records of the church
Okay.
as a woman.
Okay. Really quick, Gerardo, talk about the podcast he's about to share for those who don't know what it is. It's Listen, Learn, and Love. Is it Blake Ostler? Is that his?
Yeah.
No. What's his name? Papa Ostler.
Richard Ostler.
Richard Ostler. Listen, Learn, and Love. Tell us what you know about that podcast.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm laughing a little bit is because John, had pointed out before that interestingly, that phrase "listen, learn, love" is a phrase that you use on
my TED Talk.
TED Talk that got you excommunicated.
That was the whole point. Those are the 3 points of my TED Talk: listen, learn, and love. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's a podcast that where Richard Ostler invites members of the church. He has had some non-members and some people who have also left the church, but mostly members of the church who are LGBT, and they share their experiences as openly as they can, on how it is to live as an LGBT person in the church. And so here's Richard Ostler, who was a bishop, I believe. I don't think he currently is a bishop, but he used to be a bishop. And interviewing this person who was baptized, and she's transgender.
Yeah. Really quick, I'll share a comment from Julia, Analyzing Mormonism. She says, just like they want us to be respectful of the name Mormon, they should respect chosen names, and I'll add pronouns. That's a great point, Julia. Thanks for sharing. Okay. And we should also say that, along with like Julia de Azevedo Hanks, these sort of more progressive voices within Mormonism, Patrick Mason, the Givenses, the Bushmans, Papa Ostler, they've all come under fire by these sort of ultra conservative fundamentalist Mormon Twitter people and YouTube people, right? Like,
Yes, totally.
yeah, they're kind of always in the line of fire of people like Jacob Hansen. All right, we're gonna play now from Papa Ostler.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Listen, Learn, and Love, hosted by Richard Ostler. My guest on today's podcast is a new convert to the church. Will you tell us Lauren, and will you tell us your last name? I want to make sure I say it right.
Again.
And Lauren is a transgender Latter-day Saint who joined the church following a legal transition, following medical transition, is obviously a woman. But I just thought this would be a wonderful story for those that are trying to better minister to transgender Latter-day Saints, for those that are transgender, for those that are trying to, that are in local leadership, trying to create space for transgender Latter-day Saints. And our joint prayers, the things that Lauren shares, will be helpful. Talk more about what that means to you when someone just says, "This is my friend. She's my girl."
Yeah, it just feels super affirming and super loving. I mean, yes, it's being proud to be trans is awesome. Like, I have a trans flag hanging up in my room. Like, I have the proud part of it, but I also know that isn't my full definition. I am here and I'm able to be in all spaces. I don't just have to go to one space and feel like that's all I belong to. I can go to all spaces and just be myself.
I mean, that's helpful for me, listeners. I think Lauren, it sounds like, is fine having a conversation about being trans and what that means to somebody who wants to understand. But I think generally Lauren would like to be accepted as a sister, a woman, a girl, whatever circle she's in, and not have this sort of additional label, if I'm speaking correctly. And I think that's one of the things we can do as grace, as members of the church, is just see you as a daughter of God, because that's the way you see you, and I'm going to see you the way you see you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to define you based on anything but how you're defining you. That just seems like the gospel of grace, or the gospel of kindness, the gospel of love, the gospel of support, the gospel of compassion. And I'm learning a little bit, listeners, just listening to Lauren as I'm going along here.
Now, my initial thought.
All right, Gerardo, anything you want to say about how awesome Richard Ostler is?
He's awesome. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes I've been a little bit, not publicly, but maybe just within me, critical of him. Because in some way, I feel like he's part of the enabling of what some LGBT people experience in the church. But obviously, the highlighting of these stories is so incredibly important. And I think there's going to be a shocking part to this story that is going to make Jacob really, really upset in just a minute. And we're going to be talking about him.
All right. Well, let's hear what Jacob has to say after playing that clip.
Was that perhaps this was some sort of a mistake? I mean, if a man dresses like a woman and says he's a woman, the church now will consider him a woman?
You know, and I noticed some of the questions were, what does your membership, I mean, as you just said, like, I even have it right here, like it says female on the membership tools app.
Anybody didn't listen to the first podcast, this was not a one-off with some missionaries that went rogue in Arizona and just baptized you on the sly. Lauren was pretty clear that she had a supportive mission president. This goes through the mission president. The new converts baptism goes through the mission president, who needed to get First Presidency approval.
Mm-hmm.
You were taught by sisters because you're a woman.
But this is a man.
All right. So before he goes on his rant that's obnoxious and offensive, Ostler brings up a really important point. This is the second First Presidency, Mormon Church First Presidency approved transgender baptism that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So this is the second. I was aware of one a few years back, but this means that even though Russell M. Nelson, Dallin H. Oaks and Henry B. Eyring, express doctrine and theology and concern about gender transitioning and or same-sex marriage, they are approving the baptism of transgender individuals, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a hard. I mean, put yourself in their position. It's pretty cool, right, that this is happening, and it's even cooler that it's being highlighted by both sides of Mormonism, right, the conservative side and also the progressive side. But if you put yourself on their shoes of First Presidency, and the doctrine of baptism is that all your sins are forgiven when you get baptized, and you believe that social or any kind of transition is sinful, well, those sins would have to go away, right? So it's a hard position to be in, where the First Presidency have to decide these cases, right? But at the end, they're choosing to let these people join the church, with I think is pretty impressive.
Yeah. But I don't know what it means. Why wouldn't the church deny these baptisms?
Right.
Just say you're not living in, just like they might not baptize a man and a woman who aren't married, who are living together. That's how my mission went.
Right.
They probably wouldn't baptize two gay men who were married or living together. I wonder why they're allowing transgender individuals to be baptized when in some ways they're living out of harmony with the policy.
Right. The only difference with people living when they're not living together when they're not married, or in same-sex marriages, there's always something they have to do, right? They have to divorce, or they have to get married if they're like a heterosexual couple. With transgender people, it becomes a little bit more complicated, especially if they have undergone surgical procedures to transition. Because then what is there to do after that, right? Like, is the church gonna require them to detransition in order them to get baptized? I think that just gets really complicated.
So instead, they just decided to kind of waive the concern and allow them to be baptized.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so I guess that's why we're going to see Jacob Hansen lose his mind here. All right, let's play.
Right? Sister missionaries are not allowed to meet alone with men. Is it now the case that if a man claims he's a woman, the sister missionaries can meet alone with him?
You were on the church.
Do we
think
for a second that Jacob Hansen is concerned about the safety of the sister missionaries here?
No, not at all.
Is that what he's trying to tell us? He's like worried the sister missionaries are going to be unsafe meeting with a man?
No, he's just trying to be unkind and mock this transgender person.
1,000%. And Cultural Hall writes, Jacob knows what he's doing. He's intentionally being hurtful. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think that's his brand. And I don't know why the church lets these YouTubers do what they do, because Jacob Hansen could be excommunicated for violating Jesus's teachings of kindness, but somehow he's violating the church's policies on respecting the names and genders and pronouns of transitioning people. Why doesn't the church discipline Jacob Hansen?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question.
Why is unkindness or cruelty not grounds for excommunication, but being same-sex married is, or even in my case, speaking up for same-sex marriage is grounds for excommunication? It's strange. All right, let's keep going.
Presidency approval for your baptism in a written communication to the mission president, the way that works. And you were came on the records as the church as female, going to Relief Society. The restrictions are you cannot attend the temple, and you're at peace with that. So if someone's wondering this was a rogue event by some whatever vocabulary we're going to use that's going to end badly, this is the First Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with keys to authorize your baptism. And that is significant.
I agree. If men are now able to be put on the records of the church as women and treated as a woman, that is extremely significant. And it makes the following very hard to understand.
We also know that
Really quick, a lot of the commenters are noting that I'm really angry. And I don't know, part of me feels like, yeah, I'm angry because he's being so mean and hurtful. But part of me feels bad that I'm being so upset. And Gerardo, these sorts of issues touch you more closely than me, and you're being so cool, calm, and collected. So I don't know what's going on here.
I'm sorry. Well, John, I know this is something that's important for you too, right? So I think it's important for everybody, and everybody just reacts differently. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. This does touch people close to me, people that I love. So
yeah.
So that's probably it. So thanks for. Anyway, if you think I'll try and keep calm and professional and collected, but if I'm upset, it's because I'm experiencing public cruelty that I think is inappropriate and hurtful and damaging, and it's upsetting me. But I'll try and thanks for calling me out on it. I'll try and I'll do better.
gender is an essential characteristic of individual premortal, mortal, and eternal identity and purpose.
Interestingly, Bishop Ostler, who hosts this podcast, is keenly aware of this man being treated as a woman, creates some seeming confusion and contradiction in church policy.
And listeners, I recognize that if I understand the handbook correctly, if you go through a medical transition like Lauren has, that can put you sideways with church teachings. But you did that as before you joined the church. And so through the letter to the senior leaders of the church, I assume the First Presidency or whoever at the church handles these things, you were given the green light. And so some may feel there's inconsistencies there. We treat investigators that have fully transitioned different than we teach our own members who feel impressed to transition or fully transition.
Do you see what he's saying? Members can face church discipline if they socially transition. It would seem that doing so, according to the church's policy, constitutes some sort of sinful behavior. But this man was baptized without any regrets about his transitioning. And in fact, he's very proud of the fact that he transitioned. And frankly, Bishop Ostler thinks this is great.
That is you, Lauren, because here you are looking for the unique doctrine of our restored church and the hope and healing it brings. So we're gathering Israel, but LGBTQ people are Israel too. Even those that are already baptized that are LGBTQ, they're part of the gathering of Israel, is to help them feel more welcome and included. Those that are born into our faith that sometimes wonder if there's room for them or place for them. So you help us.
Help us what?
Anything you want to say about what Ostler was saying?
I think he has a great point, right? Like there's definitely some disparity as far as how people who have transitioned before joining the church are treated versus people who are already members and decide to transition. Well, actually, thinking about it, Jacob Hansen might have muddied the waters a little bit because I don't think he said it yet, but Jacob Hansen is going to say that members of the church who are already members and decide to either socially transition or go through surgical procedures, he says they can face membership discipline. But that's not what the Handbook of Instructions says. The Handbook of Instructions says church membership restrictions, and it gives very specific of what those restrictions are, and it gives some examples like entering the temple or receiving the priesthood, which would be the same restrictions that this transgender women who joined the church would be facing in the future as well. So actually, just thinking about it, I don't think either Richard Ostler or Jacob Hansen are totally right when they're saying that the people are treated differently, because I could be wrong, but my understanding from what I read on the Handbook of Instructions is that it's not church discipline, it's just membership restrictions, which would be the same for both. Does that make sense?
Yeah. want to share the comment of M. Gunter. They write, "Stay angry at this extreme vitriol. It's impressive that you haven't become numb to such hatred after seeing so much of it over the years." Thanks, Em. Thanks for the super chat. Thanks for the support. Speaking of anger, look at Jacob's face right now, Gerardo. What do you see there? What emotions do you see in his eyes, in his brow, in his mouth? What do you see there?
Oh, he's definitely angry.
He's angry?
Yeah, I think he's angry.
And if anger is a secondary emotion, I can say as a psychologist, anger is known as a secondary emotion. And usually under anger, there's a couple choices. There's either fear or sadness. Would you say he's afraid or sad or both?
I think he's afraid. I think that he tells us that in the title of the video and throughout the video. He just doesn't know how the church is going to move forward with this what he perceived to be over a progressive movement taking over the church.
So he's afraid that progressives are taking over the church.
Yeah.
And is he sad? What's he sad about? What does he have to be sad about?
The video show he will show quotes from the prophets, right? And about what they say regarding gender and marriage. And I think that probably causes some not just confusion, but also what's it called?
I could say Jean Gaudreau is saying disgust. He's saying disgust. What were you going to say, Gerardo?
Yeah, I was going to say cognitive dissonance.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's disgust, there's fear, there's sadness that his church is going to change. Part of what's weird about that is the church has been changing for 200 years. Like the church changes all the time. Is he never received the memo that the Mormon church changes all the time?
Right. Yeah.
How is that a new thing for him?
Yeah. Well, when you're that conservative Orthodox member of the church, you're under this idea that there are core doctrines of the church that never change, which I think we all know it's true.
I mean, the church used to teach that it was a sin to even have gay thoughts and feelings. They used to send gay members to conversion therapy, electroshock therapy at BYU. Then they start softening that with the Mormons and Gays website. But then they do the exclusion policy when same-sex marriage is legalized. Then they take the same-sex, the exclusion policy, then they take it away 4 years later. They were excommunicating same-sex Mormons. We're going to be talking in a future episode about how it appears they've stopped excommunicating married same-sex Mormons. Like, how is it new to Jacob that the church has not been constantly evolving and changing on this issue? It's just beyond me. It's like he just woke up and all of a sudden has been paying attention to the church.
Yeah.
And its LGBT policies.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling a little bit.
Yeah. All right.
Confuse gender? Destroy women-only spaces in the church? But according to Bishop Ostler, if we are confused, perhaps it's our fault. Perhaps the Lord's doctrine on gender is not what we think it is.
Some of you may listen.
Really quickly, do you think he's concerned about women-only spaces in the church, that somehow he's just this protector of women-only spaces, and that's really a concern to him?
I would hate to get political, but it's obviously it parallels really well with the political stance of that current conservatives have regarding transgender issues, right?
There's bathrooms and stuff like that.
Something the church is talking about.
Yeah, you're right. So he's reflecting more cultural, political issues of the day than in any way is he following the leadership of the bride, except for Oaks. Like Oaks did play that letter that he plays at the very beginning, expressing the concern of that teenage girl.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, he's not talking about bathrooms and what about the sister missionaries teaching a transgender person?
Or Relief Society, right? Or Relief Society, women-only meetings.
Right.
Anyway, it's weird when people hide their bigotry behind a feigned concern for marginalized groups like women.
Yeah.
I
Is he,
just,
if he's worried about Relief Society having a transgender person in it, why is he not worried about the general Relief Society? What's it like the meeting they have?
yeah, he's going to show that. He's going to show that clip.
With First Presidents, with the First Presidency in it, right? There's man definitely on Relief Society meetings.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, why are they letting First Presidency members speak to women at
Right.
women's only meetings? Like they're violating sacred women's only spaces when they go speak at those meetings.
Right.
Yeah, it's tone deaf. I don't think it's sincere. It's disingenuous.
Be listening to a transgender Latter-day Saint for the first time, and I love the words of Elder Uchtdorf, where he said, how often have the Holy Spirit tried to tell us something but we couldn't get past the massive iron gate of what we thought we already knew.
But then what are we to make of what our prophets teach us?
Fundamental to us is God's revelation that exaltation can only be attained through faithfulness to the covenants of an eternal marriage between a man and a woman. That divine doctrine is why we teach that gender is an essential characteristic of individual premortal, mortal, and eternal identity and purpose.
Are you confused? I have to say that I am. Now, if this were the only instance of things that confuse me, I would not be making this video. But let's consider these words from Elder Holland as he encouraged the BYU faculty to not engage in LGBT advocacy.
For example, we have to be careful that love and empathy do not get interpreted as condoning an advocacy.
Now, with that in mind, it confuses me why the church would recently have bishops like Bishop Sherinian, who has been engaged in queer advocacy for years, hired as the new communications director for the church. This is a man who, while serving as bishop, was posting his joy at the redefinition of marriage.
God-sanctioned marriage between a man and a woman has been the basis of civilization for thousands of years. There is no justification to redefine what marriage is. Such is not our right, and those who try will find themselves answerable to God.
Is this no longer what we believe? It is at the very least confusing to have a bishop in our church posting love is love while the church's official teachings are that homosexual relationships are seriously sinful.
Wait.
In fact, I was recently
You want me to pause?
Yeah, that was I just had a thought right there when he talks about when he plays the clip from Gordon B. Hinckley. He speaks with very strong words, where he says that people who attempt to change the definition of marriage legally, they would be be accountable to God. That's pretty interesting, given that, I mean, we've covered this, but given that the church has now supported the Respect for Marriage Act, I mean, of course, because it benefits them, because it gives them the religious protections that they want to have. But I mean, that's really striking contrast with Gordon B. Hinckley saying from the pulpit that people are going to be accountable to God for trying to define or change the definition of marriage. And then Jacob Hansen asks, is this not what we believe? Well, of course it's not, Jacob, because the church has officially now supported a bill that officially, redefines the definition of marriage in the law.
Yeah. I don't know exactly the right place to talk about this, but if you remember when the church PR person put out a statement against Tim Ballard, how people like Cardin Ellis and others and probably Jacob, immediately their reaction to it was that there's a mole, there's some mole in the church who's making decisions that the brethren don't know about, that somebody's gone rogue inside the church, that the brethren aren't doing this, that it's apostate liberal church employees that have infiltrated the church, sort of this weird conspiracy thinking stuff. Like, what do you think Jacob is thinking? Does he think that when Sherinian is called as the head of communications, that like the top church leaders didn't vet it, that they don't know? Or does he think that like somehow either Sherinian, they didn't vet Sherinian before they put him in the most important role in the church, the PR spokesman? Or you know, what is he thinking, that the brethren are asleep at the wheel and that these decisions are being made without their knowledge? And if so, is he concerned that the brethren are asleep at the wheel and aren't paying attention to these really big decisions? Like what's, because he's quoting Oakes and he's quoting Hinckley and he's quoting Nelson as if he has faith in them and takes them seriously, right?
Right.
What do you think he's thinking?
Well, I think, remember when at the beginning I said these looked a lot to me like what Bill Reel did to Elder Holland, where he would put one of his statements here and then another of his statements here and then show the disparity. It looks like that's kind of what he's doing here. He's probably genuinely confused and saying this is what they're telling us officially from the pulpit, but then this is what they're doing. But
there's only two possibilities. Tell me if I'm wrong, Gerardo. One is that the brethren are asleep at the wheel, too old to pay attention, that they're not leading the church, and that all these mid-level progressive bureaucrats in his mind have kind of taken over the church. That's one option. And I think he'd be concerned that the people supposed to be leading the church aren't. The other option is that they know, which I think is the true one. I've talked to Jim. I've heard from Jim Bennett, who confirms that Sherinian was vetted. He was interviewed by top church leaders. They knew his background, and he was picked because of his background, not out of ignorance for it. So the other option is that the brethren are in charge. They are making these decisions. And if that's the case, then he should be apostatizing, because it would mean that the top leaders of the church are going against their own teachings. Doesn't he lose either way? Is there a way out? Is there a third way that I'm not seeing for Jacob Hansen and his ilk?
I mean, is the second one includes the fact that the brethren can be duplicitous intentionally?
That the brethren are lying? I mean,
well, not lying, but I think
disingenuous, duplicitous.
Right. Like they know that there's things that they can, like Elder Holland told you when you met with him. Like, oh, this is great that you don't want people to get divorced over faith crises, but I can't say that over the pulpit, but you go and tell people that I told you that was okay.
Yeah.
Is that kind of where they're at? I think it is, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just think it's a slippery slope for Jacob, because really, unless he's just totally ignoring logic, this leads him to believe the church is in apostasy. And that's where the Denver Snuffer types go. That's where the Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow types go. That's even where the Tim Ballard and the Visions of Glory, Avram Gileadi, who's the author of Visions of Glory? I'm spacing on his name. Tom Harrison. All these fundamentalist conservative Mormons, they often go to the churches in apostasy, which is weird, because I thought Mormonism was brought in to end the apostasy. So now we're going to have another apostasy after the first apostasy, and we need a second restoration to restore the restoration that came with Joseph Smith. Like I don't know how these guys live in their minds without going crazy, which is probably why, look at his face. He's clearly tormented, right? Because we're watching a cognitive dissonance meltdown of Jacob Hansen. Unless he just puts it all back in the box and just follows the brethren and believes the brethren, he's on the course of a meltdown, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how else he's going to do it. Same with Cardinellis, same with Kwaku. I don't know how they maintain this position in the long run. Either they leave and apostatize, or the church kicks him out. I don't know how it doesn't end in one of those two things.
Yeah. I mean, there's also the possibility that the church doesn't do anything to them because they have public platform, right? And the have learned that they shouldn't touch people.
But what happens when they get a following of 100,000 people or more? Like they're already at 20, 30, 40,000. Right. Like at what point does the church fracture because they have such a large following that they're influencing.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, eventually the church has always cut this stuff off. Now, maybe it's too feeble and weak now, but if that's true, then the church is going to have even a worse situation on its hands, because imagine elders quorum, right? With these factions battling against each other.
Yeah.
I just don't know how the church withstands that. All right, let's keep going.
Involved in a membership council for someone who had engaged in homosexual behavior and where he faced church discipline. Yet, when the Deseret book author Charlie Bird announces his engagement to his boyfriend on social media, I see other LDS authors and BYU officials writing entire blogs where they celebrate this union that the church teaches is deeply sinful.
Now, Gerardo, we've covered Charlie Bird in the past and people like him. I know you have strong feelings about Charlie. Is there anything you want to share or say about Charlie Bird and his husband, Ryan? For those who don't know who Charlie Bird is, do you mind giving a little background?
Yeah, well, Charlie was the BYU mascot.
Cosmo the Cougar.
Yeah, when he was in college, became pretty popular because of a viral video that came out, and then eventually came out as gay and wrote a book that the Deseret book published, and then eventually, well, it was
also mentioned Ben Shalati in the podcast, right?
Oh yeah, he's really good friends with Ben Shalati, who was an honor code administrator at the time, and then it was revealed that as the book was printing from Deseret book, this book of Charlie Bird telling his story about being a gay member of the church and loving the church, but how hard it is to be LGBT and celibate, and but also not encouraging people to be celibate. It was like kind of like a hard line to walk on that book. But anyway, as the book was printing, he was secretly dating or getting to know his current husband, Ryan Clifford. And eventually he decided, as he was almost graduating his master from BYU, to come out about his relationship, to tell the honor code administration that he had been dating. The honor code didn't really do anything to discipline him. They just told him he needed to stop his relationship, which he did, supposedly for the remaining time. And then he when he graduated, he came he kept dating Ryan, and now they're married. And right before he announced his engagement, he published his second book, and which was not published by Deseret Book, was self-published, but Deseret Book did sell it for a little bit on the bookstores, and I believe online. And then once he announced his engagement to Ryan, he himself went to Deseret Book and told them, hey, I know this is probably, well, I don't know exactly why he told them, but he asked them to remove his books voluntarily from Deseret Book. But a lot of people love him, and he has a big platform. He's on Instagram, has a podcast with Ben Shalati called Questions from the Closet. And there's a lot of LDS people who support him and love him. And now that he's married, has definitely bring a light into what it is like to be LGBT member of the church who's married to someone of the same sex.
Yeah, and we're going to do an episode about these guys, I believe. But one of the things that's so upsetting to Greg is what we've depicted in this slide here. Do you want to just explain what this slide is and what it's saying?
Well, it turns out that they are being embraced in full fellowship in their word. Charlie and Ryan have callings.
No.
Yeah, so there has their names, Charlie Bird and Ryan Clifford, and they're both Word Activities Chair. That's their calling, and yeah, so there's even more things to talk about later in a future episode about how they're being embraced in full fellowship in their words.
Yeah, we've covered this on Mormon Stories in the past, but I can list just quickly. I went back and found, I don't know, 4 or 5 Mormon Stories episodes where we interviewed same-sex married couples who were excommunicated. So Dusty Johns and his partner from Idaho Falls, they were excommunicated for getting same-sex married. Lori Lee Hall, who was the chief architect for the Mormon Church for like 30 years, she was excommunicated simply for gender expression. She didn't even have any surgeries, and she was excommunicated simply for changing her gender expression after giving 30 plus years to the church as the head church architect, architecting many of their temples. And then we've got Elizabeth Grimshaw, who's facing excommunication, who was excommunicated along with her partner for same-sex marriage. And then there's at least one other story that we have on Mormon Stories. So we've been covering this for a long time. For so long, the church has gone after these people and excommunicated them when they found out that they had taken that step and gotten excommunicated. And
Well,
Ryan and I guess Jacob's super upset that now all of a sudden the church is letting Charlie and Ryan be members in what appears to be fellowship. I don't know if it's full fellowship. I don't know if they have temple recommends, but they clearly have callings, right? So Gerardo, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say another one episode which is quite shocking, I think, is the one we did with Douglas and Brennan, where they're not even attending church. Brennan has not attended his word in years. He never served a mission. He was not endowed. He didn't have the Melchizedek priesthood, and he was contacted by his bishop to face disciplinary action because he was married to Douglas, and this was like just recently. And we have the recordings of the meetings with the bishop and then the stake president. And we called the episode "Persecuted by the Mormon Church" because literally, like it was the bishop trying to figure out the address because he didn't even live in the ward. The bishop went in long. It was this crazy story. Like they had to drive out of ward boundaries to deliver the letter for church discipline. Anyway, just crazy story. And then we have Charlie and Ryan here with with callings and being embraced in the word.
And it's an important moment because I haven't heard about the excommunication of same-sex married couples for a while. So it's possible the church has paused same-sex marriage excommunications and is soft transitioning into ward embraces of same-sex married couples where they're not disciplined. Maybe they can't have temple recommends, but it looks like they can have callings and be members in almost full fellowship. And if the church has made that change, that's pretty significant, right, Gerardo?
Right. For sure.
And I would say you and I would say that that's where maybe we disagree with Jacob Hansen. I think we would celebrate that as a positive change. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, Gerardo. Do you celebrate that as a positive change?
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. I do too. But here we've got Jacob Hansen's face. I don't think he's loving it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's keep going.
Now, regardless of your opinions on these matters, is this not confusing? Even Young Women's General President Emily Bell Freeman still has Charlie posted on her social media page as an example of someone that we can all learn from. So is it that some people who have some level of celebrity status don't face any sort of church discipline for what they do, while ordinary members like my friend do? I couldn't help but think of my friend who was in that membership council and what he thinks about all this.
Really quickly, Gerardo, what do you think about that idea? Are Charlie and Ryan getting a pass because Charlie's a celebrity, or is the church just changing and they're the most visible example of the church changing? What do you think?
I think it's a combination of everything. It's a combination of his celebrity status, not only his celebrity status, but how he has built the brand around him, right? Like he believes in the church so much. He loves Jesus. He loves the church. He loves the brethren. so it's hard to excommunicate someone like that, right? And then also combine that with being in one of, in a very progressive ward, with a lot of people that support you, with a bunch of members that support you and love you and your husband. It's just a combination, I think, of the perfect recipe for that to happen. I don't think it's something that's coming up from headquarters necessarily, but
Yeah, I'm getting the question from Spencer Ostad. John, is it true that they don't punish celebrities? It's pretty true. I remember when Tyler Glenn was coming out against the church with his excommunication album. We were close friends at the time. He received direct word that throughout the church, the word was put out, leave Tyler Glenn alone. And whether it's, David Archuleta, Tyler Glenn, Steve Young, the church does not like to go after celebrities because it becomes an international scandal. But then that's weird that prophets, seers, and revelators are selectively applying the disciplinary councils and punishment and giving favor to celebrities. That's kind of weird, right?
yeah. Well, and I have to say that I think the Charlie and Ryan situation it's a little bit different than most situations, because Tyler did do that album and everything. He was public about his stances with the church, but he was not attending church, right? He was not attending a ward. He wasn't trying to get or taking the sacrament or trying to get callings, but these guys are. So it is a little bit different and really interesting and something to celebrate for sure. Like you said, John, the fact that the church is not doing anything to them, but doing the opposite, right?
I don't know if you even know the answer, but Donnie Lee Gringo in Brazil is asking if David Archuleta resigned or has been excommunicated. Do you know, and are you able to say?
I don't believe he has.
You don't believe he's resigned or has been excommunicated?
He's definitely not been excommunicated. I don't believe he has resigned.
Okay. All right. And we could be wrong, but that's our understanding. All right. Let's keep going.
Confusing event had to do with Liv Haney. Liv is a young women's president who also is a queer activist. She has explicitly stated online that she has stopped believing in the Family Proclamation and participates in all sorts of queer activism in and around the church's BYU school. So it was really confusing to me when Sharon Eubank and the Relief Society General Presidency chose Liv as the person to join them on stage at BYU.
So I'm very pleased to introduce my friend, Jessica Livier Haynes, but she goes by Liv. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the BYU conference.
Well, my name is Livier, but most people call me Liv, and I really like it. I'm a young women's president. I'm a daughter, a sister, a returned missionary. I am queer. If you don't know how to refer to someone, what term to use or pronoun, listen to them. Listen how I speak about myself, and show me and show everyone that you want to be in this journey. For a long time, I felt that recognizing who I am made me broken, and I was ashamed of saying it out loud. I had always had those feelings, but it took me about 20 years to look at myself in the mirror and say it out loud. But now I know that I'm not broken. I am perfect the way I am.
Gerardo, as a gay graduate of BYU Idaho, how does it make you feel to see that clip that was recorded at BYU?
Yeah, I think I was shocked when I saw that. I think it's awesome. I don't think that would have ever been allowed at BYU Idaho, but I'm really happy that it's happening in Provo. And wow, just really cool, really interesting. I'm not sure if they would have known about her background or that she has expressed doubt about the Family Proclamation before on her social media. But just the fact that they allowed her to get up there, say that she's queer to everybody, remember when Holland was making a fuss because there was a valedictorian who came out as gay, and here's like this young woman's president with someone who's like, invited by someone who's in the highest leadership of the church, and she's telling everybody there that she's queer and how to use pronouns and why to use pronouns, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah, like, why did Holland give the musket talk if at BYU they're going to be bringing up queer people on stage, telling the audience to respect their pronouns, and having the queer person say, I love who I am, I'm perfect, God made me this way? Why did Holland give his musket talk at all?
Yeah, but I agree. Really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, but Gerardo, does this signify that the church is really, I mean, all these events, does it signify whether it's Sherinian, Charlie Bird, and Ryan's acceptance, this video clip that we just saw, the baptism of trans people? Are we seeing a turning point in Mormonism where the Mormon church is making significant strides in 2024 to embrace and accept LGBTQ individuals? Do you think we can say that, or is it too early?
If I'm honest, I think that these movements are being driven by the members and by local leaders themselves, and the brethren are just trying to manage everything from above without breaking the church and trying to keep everyone happy, but at the same time trying to uphold the doctrine. I've been able to talk to someone who has had several meetings with a senior apostle just as recent as probably in the last couple years, where it's pretty obvious that the apostles are, or at least some of them, again, this is a senior apostle, and he seemed to be pretty oblivious about LGBT issues, about their experiences, about why it's important to them that they're gay, about why it's something that they can't change, about the struggles that they go through. And I mean, that just tells me that this is just not, I don't think this is something where the apostles are getting together and planning on how they're going to reform the church in the next 20 years to accept gay marriage. I think this is something that is being driven from from below, and then the brethren are just trying to put out fires and manage it without, like I said, breaking the church.
Yeah, because the way the church has operated historically, they never apologize. They never tell the church members a doctrine's changed, a theology has changed, a policy is significantly changed. They just quietly change and act like it's always been the way that they just changed towards. But also, what's that?
Someone made this comment, and I think that's exactly what I thought when I talked to this person who has met with this apostle. The brethren live in a bubble with little interaction with regular members.
Okay, so if that's true, who's leading the church, Gerardo? Who's making these decisions if it's not the brethren?
I think they are making the decisions, but they're not. I don't think it's calculated.
They don't even know what they're doing?
I think. What do you mean? I mean, give me an example.
Well, like picking Sherinian as the chief PR guy. Or this BYU woman, this woman bringing up a queer student at BYU, like certainly that was approved.
I don't think the brethren would have approved that necessarily. I don't know, but as far as Sherinian, I think it was something where they would be like, oh, this person really loves queer people, and we want to give the appearance that we like gay people, because I think they genuinely believe they do. And they thought, oh, this would be a good opportunity. I don't think they're really thinking about the consequences of their decisions. And
they're acting in a granular level. They're not thinking about the forest. They're just dealing with tree after tree after tree, and not even thinking about the forest.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious by the November 15 policy, right? Like, they came out with this egregious policy that was against doctrine, that made a lot of members abandon the church and resign their church membership without thinking about the repercussions, and then doubling down, right? Like going on the media and talking about why it was important that this was a revelation, blah blah blah, and then 3 years later reversing it. I don't think any of these decisions are calculated.
I mean, honestly, if I had to characterize the way the church deals with these sorts of things, it's by being duplicitous. It's by talking out of both sides of their mouth, by saying things to please the conservatives and the fundamentalists, like Jeffrey Holland's Musket Talk, but then doing progressive and conservative progressive and liberal things to keep the progressives and the liberals happy, and most importantly, to help protect its image to people outside the church. So it's duplicity, like you said earlier. It's duplicity. It's speaking out of both sides of your mouth, trying to be all things to all people, and never really taking a firm stance. And they'll do that for another 30 years until same-sex marriage is accepted in the temple. And at that point, they'll say, "It's always been that way. What are you talking about?" You know?
Yeah, for sure.
We've always loved gay people. I don't know what you're complaining about. Anyway, I think you're right. I think that's what's going on. All right, let's keep going.
What does that even mean? Is the position of the church that we are perfect the way we are? Is it our belief that experiencing same-sex attraction or dealing with gender dysphoria is not an issue to be concerned with? I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but does this kind of rhetoric create more clarity? Or does it cause deeper confusion and division? And why was it the Relief Society's choice to have an activist who does not believe in the Family Proclamation to speak on these issues when President Oaks is out saying the exact opposite?
Those who do not fully understand the Father's loving plan for his children may consider this Family Proclamation no more than a changeable statement of policy. In contrast, we affirm that the Family Proclamation, founded on unchangeable doctrine, defines the kind of family relationships where the most important part of our eternal development can occur.
This is why things like pride displays in local chapels cause so much confusion. It also confuses members when the church's official university, BYU, is handing out gay pride and pronoun gear to its students. It's confusing for students at the church's university to sit in on a lecture where professors are positing the radical idea that maybe Joseph and Jesus were gay.
And they notice something really powerful about the figure, the literary figure that's being developed, and that is he shows signs of being gay. What they're doing is gendering the Savior. They are saying that the person that delivers us has a more effeminate view of the world. We do see one interesting parallel in the Jesus story, and then here in the Joseph story, and that is a character that's called, quote, beloved. And obviously this is something to think through. What does this mean to have a disciple who's a very close male affiliate, and he's someone loved by Jesus?
It is also confusing when we are hearing professors at the church's universities pray to Heavenly Mother along with Heavenly Father.
Our opening prayer today will be offered by Dr. Rachel Gianni Abbott.
Our Heavenly Parents, thank you for this new day to live life and learn lessons. And our Heavenly Parents, thank you for this new day to live.
Honestly, I wish I did not have more examples, but I have many, many more.
I mean, Gerardo, at this point, he's going on this litany. It looks like he's almost crying there. It looks like his eyes are red and that he's almost crying, going on this litany of all these decisions the church is making. And I don't, at the sake of being repetitive, first of all, what do you think about those changes you're seeing? How do they make you feel? And then what do you have to say about Jacob and how he's handling it?
Again, I think these are not necessarily changes that are coming from the top, other than maybe not doing anything to go after these professors, right? Because the church really well could go and discipline these professors for praying to the heavenly parents, or for claiming on a podcast or teaching in a podcast that Jesus and Joseph were gay. But these are BYU professors, right? And the church is not doing anything to them. So, I mean, we do know, John, though, that the church has doubled down a little bit on the questions that they're asking BYU professors, specifically regarding same-sex marriage and the doctrines of gender. So I don't know. I think that what the only solution that the brethren have is try to put out the fires wherever they appear. It's obviously not working, right? The membership is still obviously going in the progressive side pretty rapidly. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I've got a viewer who's watching, a friend of mine who gave me permission to share this. I'm trying to decide if there are parts of it that need to be redacted. But basically what it is, it's a First Presidency letter that is giving approval, I believe, for a transgender individual to be baptized. It's a little bit fuzzy, but it does have the signature of the First Presidency. So there you can see it. It's it looks like that's May 28th-ish, 2019. It's really hard to read. It's on church letterhead. It's in the Ohio Cincinnati mission. And my understanding is, if I could read that more clearly, maybe I'll try and get it translated. But my understanding is this is an example of a letter from 5 years ago now, where the First Presidency approved a transgender baptism. So that's the second instance that I've heard of, and I just wanted to share it.
Yeah,
because it's receipts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I wonder what Jacob Hansen thinks about that letter.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a mole if the First Presidency's doing it, right? They're signing the letter.
Right.
I mean, he's got to apostatize or change his beliefs,
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
I will just offer one more area that deeply confuses me. And it is why nothing happens to members of the church who publish books like Queer Mormon Theology, a book by Blair Ostler, which accuses the church of homophobia and actively advocates for activism against the church in order to get it to embrace queer polygamy in its temples.
The text beautifully and prophetically states, disability, death, or other circumstances may necessitate individual adaptation. Extended families should lend support when needed. This sentence explicitly states that there are other circumstances which require individual adaptation. Other circumstances could also include a trans woman married to a cisgender woman. The trans woman may have identified as a man prior to her transition, but after she transitions, the couple's biological offspring could have two mothers. Think of it. Trans women show us that there are ways a lesbian couple can have their own biological offspring. Other circumstances could include a mixed orientation marriage of an asexual man and heterosexual woman who is impregnated by a sperm donor. Depending on the anatomy of the persons involved, a transgender man and a cisgender man can already reproduce their own biological offspring together. Transgender men who desire fatherhood as gestational dads can even nurse their babies in a practice called chest feeding. Eventually, uterus transplants may allow transgender women to gestate children too. It seems fitting for individuals who were assigned male at birth to aspire to motherhood when Latter-day Apostles teach the highest and noblest work in this life is that of a mother.
Does the church no longer excommunicate people for open and flagrant apostasy like this? And before you
I think we should ask that question about Jacob Hansen, right?
Yeah.
How is he so clueless that he's not realizing that he's one of the types of people that the church appears to no longer be excommunicating, right?
Yeah, right.
But having been on the other side of the table, having been excommunicated, I have to say it's disgusting to see a church member who claims to be a follower and a believer in Christ to be calling on the excommunication of members, knowing personally how violent and disturbing and barbaric and medieval and frankly traumatizing the entire excommunication process is. it's revolting and disgusting, having been through that myself with my family, to see Jacob like furiously calling on the excommunication of his fellow members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. How do you feel about that, Gerardo?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I agree for sure. I just wanted, as he was playing those quotes from the book, from Blair Ostler's book, I remembered that my friend who has met with this senior apostle was bringing up some of these scenarios to the apostle, and it was like, he said, like, it was like his mind was exploding. Like, he had never thought about, that surrogacy was an option for a gay couple, or that a lesbian couple could have a baby with artificial insemination. Like, it's like he had never ever considered that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of crazy, but yeah.
On the one hand, it makes all the sense in the world because they're nonagenarians, 90 plus years old. They were born like pre-World War II. On the other hand, it just makes you wonder who's running the church, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Who's running the church if it's not the church leaders, I just want to hear Jacob answer that question.
I think this is some fringe book. Just know that noted LDS author and scholar Patrick Mason has done an entire podcast praising the book.
On the foyer, Blair Ostler's book is called Queer Mormon Theology, an Introduction, and Taylor Petrie's is called Tabernacles of Clay, Sexuality and Gender in Modern Mormonism. They would make great Christmas gifts for all the people on your list, stocking stuffers. That's what all the kids want this year.
Additionally, Bishop Ostler, who is a...
I just want to say, I love Patrick Mason. It's so good to see him there. It's so good to see the progressives finally winning in the church. It makes my heart sing, because these are kind, good-hearted people versus this sort of vile, violent, bigoted rhetoric that we're seeing from the people like Jacob Hansen.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Popular fireside speaker and Deseret book author had Blair on his very popular podcast 4 separate times, including one episode totally dedicated to promoting her book and looking for ways to get her ideas into the hands of church educators.
And every time Blair comes on, I learn something, and she has great insights. And so she has written a book, and we both felt it makes sense for Blair to come back on the podcast and talk about her book. Blair is somebody I deeply admire, respect, and really look up to. When I stepped in this space, Blair and her husband were and continue to be kind of mentors to me, a safe place for me as I was trying to figure out this space. I'd love to have you talk to seminary teachers and institute teachers. You're talking to that group anyway. That's a group because they're engaging with younger Latter-day Saints. This topic is coming up probably more than traditional congregations, although I don't want to say that's entirely true, but that's my experience. And they're looking for content.
Why would the church publish Bishop Ostler's books when they contain ideas like these?
While Nate is a transgender man, also known as female to male, or FTM, we can see him just as a man. Our son came out to us as transgender at age 3. I feel blessed that this was the case, as I have never thought that he was choosing this. Straight kids are never told that they should hold off on putting a label on themselves. This is part of how the shame, the awareness of being broken or wrong, begins. Yes, they know they are LGBTQ at a young age. These precious young children also carry, to varying degrees, the burden of hiding that identity. Heavenly Father told me that she, my underage daughter, was going to start hormones one way or another, and I needed to help her, so she got them from a legitimate doctor.
Keep in mind,
really quickly, Jacob asks, why is the church allowing these books to be published? I would love to hear him answer the question.
Yes, I agree.
Right? I want to hear his answer. What does he think is going on? I hope he shares that. Jacob Hansen, I'm calling you out right now. Answer your own questions. I want to hear, Jacob Hansen, what you think is going on. Why was Tim Ballard censured? Why is the church allowing Patrick Mason, such a high profile? Why is the church supporting Richard Ostler? Why is the church not excommunicating Charlie Bird? I want to hear your opinion, Jacob Hansen. I want to hear what you think. Answer your own questions. Tell us what your conspiracy theory is about what's going on. I'm dying to hear it. Okay. Biking Bandit asks, does Jacob Hansen have a calling? Just curious. I think that's a really great question.
He must have a pretty high up calling, because he said he was part of a disciplinary council just a couple weeks ago of a gay man.
So he's probably in a bishopric, right?
Yeah. Or a stake presidency.
Yeah. Suzanne Enright says, people like this dude Jacob are so prevalent in our area here in Kansas, and part of the reason I had to step away from the church. This rhetoric is so harmful, especially to the youth. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that the church is losing its hemorrhaging members in droves. The more that the church becomes polarized and blowhards like Jacob Hansen keep speaking up in ward meetings, they're going to drive out the liberals and the progressives and even just the moderates, and the church is going to continue to have disaffection. That's why I'm confused. Mormon Church, why are you not punishing people like Jacob Hansen? I don't know. I'm curious. That's what I want to see in terms of a disciplinary council.
Yeah.
If there's going to be one.
I agree.
I'd rather there not be disciplinary councils, but if there is going to be one, I'd much rather see Jacob Hansen than Blair Ostler or Richard Ostler, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Or Patrick Mason, heaven forbid. I'm sorry, I'm so
this content is on the shelf at your local Deseret book. I actually went to a Deseret bookstore to see if the book was there and to ask if they were aware about the content of the book. And when the manager came out to talk to me, she was wearing a rainbow pin under her Deseret book name tag.
I love
Seriously. Like, I was just thinking, what is going on? Again, as I said, I am not here to give the answers. I am here to express my deep confusion and to help so many others that I know feel this way realize that they're not alone. The reality is that the confusion has become so deep that even faithful members who sustain the prophets are saying things like this.
Let Kwaku finish. Is gay marriage on the table?
So
for the future.
Okay, now hold on a second.
If this is where the church wants to go, it is a genuine question. I proposed a question on Twitter. People got mad at me for asking, but it's very relevant to what's happening today. If this is the future, and this is the direction the church has said, hey, in 20 years we're gonna be a church that allows gay marriage, this is the person you'd hire.
So if I understand you
we
correctly,
haven't made a choice.
As a professional event coordinator that's done a really good job making huge parties happen and so on and so forth with thousands of people, you understand that there's a runway of advertising that has to get done for the big event. And you're saying you sense the road getting paved for a major announcement, if they were going to make a major announcement on a change on a view that's a little bit more secular on gay marriage, that this is the move to take.
I'm not coping here, guys. I'm just saying I see what's there. And I'm just saying it walks like a duck, talks like a duck. It's probably a duck.
I just have to say, like, when I started Mormon Stories podcast in 2005, the whole purpose was to help keep people in the church. So I was acting as an apologist. And then I saw so much pain, death, suicide, divorce, so much carnage that eventually I started being really critical of the church. I stopped defending the church and I got excommunicated. Then Bill Reel steps up and takes my place and starts podcasting saying, let's be faithful. And there was this joke, as Bill Reel is, John Dehlin once was, and as John Dehlin is, Bill Reel may become. And look at it. We're seeing right now that the apologists are going after each other. That as somebody grabbed this clip for Twitter, right? As Jacob Hansen is, Kwaku once was. And as Jacob Hansen, and as Quaco is, Jacob Hansen someday will become, right? These guys are all going down the same path of apostasy, right? and now they're going at each other. I mean, I don't want to say it's fun because lives are at stake here, but it's really weird to see Jacob Hansen attacking Quaco in the same decade, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think?
Yeah, definitely interesting. I mean, he's calling him out for his opinion and telling do you really support? Telling him, asking if he actually supports the brethren.
Yeah, I want to see how this ends. And if Quaco and Cardin respond, I think they've had Jacob on their podcast, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what he has to say.
See how confused we all are? Or is he right? I would not be surprised if 40%, almost half of the membership, agree with Quaco. They agree and think that it's only a matter of time until the church abandons its current doctrines on gender and marriage. But then we have our prophet telling us this.
Marriage between a man and a woman is fundamental to the Lord's doctrine and crucial to God's eternal plan. God's marriage pattern cannot be abused, misunderstood, or misconstrued. We are to emulate our Savior's kindness and compassion.
Did Nelson say that God's doctrine cannot be misunderstood or confused?
Yeah, he did. He's also said a lot of stuff.
If there were ever an unprophetic thing to have been said, Russell and Nelson just said it, right?
I think this is the same talk where he says that the definition of marriage between a man and a woman has never changed.
says a man married to two women.
Exactly. Yep.
Russell Nelson is literally married to two women. One's passed on, but one's alive, and he'll be with both of them in the hereafter. And he's saying marriage has always been one man and one woman.
Yeah. Yep.
You can't make this up. you can't write this humor.
I agree.
We are to value the rights and feelings of all of God's children. We cannot change his doctrine. It is not ours to change. His doctrine is ours to study, understand, and uphold.
So here's where I stand. I believe President Nelson. I sustain him. And I am deeply, deeply confused why even leaders in the church are giving such mixed signals. Perhaps you are as well. Perhaps this video has helped sum up what you have already been feeling. I am not a believer in activism against the church, but I am a believer in members counseling together with each other in support of our prophet and his declarations about the doctrine of marriage and the family. If this matter is important and concerning to you, and you are confused by things that are going on in the church, I would strongly encourage you to speak about it with your priesthood leaders. And perhaps share this video with them if it accurately sums up your own feelings that perhaps you struggle to articulate.
Okay, let me get this straight. He's not an activist. He doesn't believe in activism, but he's broadcasting his concerns to the world and calling on all confused members that he's helping to spread the confusion. He's calling on all of them to go speak with their priesthood leaders. What is that called, Gerardo?
Activism.
He thinks that if he just says not activism, that somehow it's not activism if he just says it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like words don't mean what they actually mean. It's like a horse is a taper, right?
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
To my dear priesthood leaders, I love you. I know, because I've been there myself, I know that you guys have had the incredible challenge of ministering to those who struggle with same-gender attraction and gender dysphoria. I personally applaud the church's efforts to look to embrace those who struggle with these things. But I think we all need to self-reflect. Are we also confused about the mixed messaging coming from the church? Somewhere in our hearts, do we think perhaps change is coming and it's just a matter of time? If you find yourself confused, perhaps you too can share this video and ask for counsel from your leaders. I am a big believer in counseling within the church and through the priesthood channels. I hope that if nothing else, this video has shown that, as Elder Oaks talked about, we have a major problem in the church with confusion. I am here essentially to echo what Elder Oaks has said. This problem is big and it's only growing. And unless church leadership creates clarity for members, this confusion will continue and people will lose faith that the church actually believes the doctrines it proclaims. Actions speak louder than words sometimes. Now, please do not take this video in the wrong way. I don't claim to have the answers. I fully support the brethren. I encourage everyone to go to their priesthood leaders to talk about their concerns around this issue. I am here in all sincerity trying to bring awareness to the very real struggle of faithful members who are confused. To the leaders, I say that we need your help. We need your guidance. We sustain you. To those watching this video, please sustain the brethren. Work within the proper priesthood channels to help create clarity within you and within your stewardship as you echo the words of our prophet on these subjects. May the Spirit of the Lord guide us as we seek to do this and build his kingdom.
There are so many.
So do you enjoy the content here on Thought?
There's so many good comments that are coming in. I wish I could read them all. I'll just read a few of them. Jacob is the only one who's confused here. Joan of Arc writes, he'll take this video down. Mark my words. That's Joan d'Arc. Deluli writes, this isn't a petition, but will you sign this paper in support of my campaign? Like just mocking the idea that he's not an activist. Shannon M writes, you're confused, Jacob, because you're being lied to by the leaders. That's true. Elder Nelson is being duplicitous. So is Oaks. And he's confused for a reason. A big thanks to Brian, Paul Verdi for the super chat. There's so many good comments that are coming in. Gerardo, what do you want to share?
Well, my final thoughts are just I agree with Jacob. The confusion is there. We've talked about it for a long time. I think Greg Prince used to say that the LGBT issues in the church have been like a roller coaster. Sometimes things look like they're getting better as far as accepting, and then something like the November 15 policy comes, right, and destroys it all, and then it gets reversed, and then we have just lots of different things like transgender people being allowed to get baptized in the church, same-sex married couples embracing their words. Like, it's definitely been a roller coaster. I think it will keep being a roller coaster. Like I said, I think it's being driven by the local members, and I think the only thing the brethren can do is just put out fires where they can, and try to be try to tell, depending on what audience they're speaking to, try to say what they think that audience needs to hear, which is kind of what they've been doing, right? But
yeah, I'll just add, Jacob Hansen, that you're so confident, you're so strident on your YouTube channel and on the internet. You talk as though you've like been around for 12 minutes and like you haven't been paying attention, and you don't know anything about your church's history for the past 1 or 2 centuries. Like, oh my gosh, the church is making a change. Have you heard of dynastic sealings, that men used to be sealed to men in the early years of the church? Have you Did you have you heard of the 1890 manifesto where polygamy was ended? And then did you know that for the next 10 or 15 years, have you ever heard of post-manifesto polygamy? Did you know that after the church told the world that it was stopping polygamy, that it kept practicing it for another 15 years until they had to issue a second manifesto? Like, have you ever heard of your own history? Do you not realize that the First Presidency, the Mormon Church First Presidency, signed multiple doctrinal statements saying that the curse of Cain and the priesthood ban on black members was doctrine until it reversed it in 1978, and then later said it was just a policy change and was never doctrine to begin with? Have you heard of the 2015 exclusion policy that was then reversed 3 or 4 years later? Like, are you not paying attention at all? You're acting like the church has never changed. What you're really doing is you're showing egregious ignorance as to the history and the reality of your own church. And if you were such a bigoted jerk in the way you treat people, I would want to be kind and compassionate with you. But you're so offensive and heinous in your level of discourse that it's really hard to have compassion for you. So what I will ask is, educate yourself, Jacob, and let me do you a little favor, okay? Go to Mormon Stories podcast, Jacob Hansen, and watch some episodes. And I'll just give you a little recommendation on a couple episodes you can watch. Watch the episode with Dusty Johns. Watch the episode with Lori Lee Hall. Watch the episode with Elizabeth Grimshaw. Watch the episode with Gerardo's friends, Douglas and Brennan, right? Watch our episodes on the November 2015 policy and its reversal. Watch our interviews with Kyle Ashworth. Go read Kyle Ashworth's was it On the Record PDF?
Yep.
Where he gives the history of the Mormon Church, changing its policies, changing its treatment of LGBTQ individuals. Become informed, learn about blood atonement that was, doctrine until it was taken away. Go learn about the Adam God theory that was doctrine until it was taken away. Learn about the Mormon Church's temple ceremony that used to be 8 or 9 hours long and used to have blood oaths where you slit your throat before they took that out. Like at the Mormon Church, if it's anything, it's been changing its doctrine and policies consistently for 2 centuries. So learn a little bit about your own history before you go on your bigoted rants that are hurtful, that only display your ignorance as to the church's history and the way the brethren have always behaved. Okay? That's how I feel, Jacob Hansen. I invite you to come on Mormon Stories and we'll have a conversation. And I promise to treat you respectfully. And mostly, I want to hear how your faith evolves, because I don't think the church long-term is going to be moving in your direction. I think the church is actually, Martin Luther King Jr. once said that the arc of history is long and it bends towards justice. And unfortunately for you, Jacob Hansen, even the Mormon Church's history bends towards justice. Maybe it's always 30 years after the fact. Maybe it's always 30 years after the rest of the civilized world. And maybe it's always in response to the same activism that it decries. But make no mistake, Jacob Hansen, the church eventually gets it right after it excommunicates the activists who showed it the way. That's always the way it's been. It's never not been that way. And that's the way it's going. So Jacob Hansen, either stay on the wrong side of history and apostatize from the church, or continue suffering, or join the rest of us in the civilized, humane world of kindness and compassion and acceptance of the marginalized and the people that Jesus Christ himself came to administer to. That's my invitation to you, Jacob Hansen.
That was a good rant.
Did Caffeinated John just reappear on Mormon Stories?
He did. Yes.
I apologize. That was something came over me. That was not planned.
Yes. Well, I mean, Yeah, it's all true, John. It's all true.
It's kind of, I mean, it is a little fun, right? I mean, the pain and the suffering of the marginalized is horrific and sad. But as you and I have been doing this for a long time, I was excommunicated for this stuff. It's nice to see 10 or 20 years or 30 or 40 years. It's nice to see the church come around. I wish they would apologize to the couples they've excommunicated for same-sex marriage, to the activists that had the courage to speak out and show the church the way. I wish the church had the courage and the dignity and the grace to apologize to the people it's punished and excommunicated that actually were on the right side of history.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, Gerardo, keep going. I need to be quiet and let you talk.
Oh, this was great. Well, I kind of gave my final thoughts, but
okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's not just with LGBT issues, right? It's like with women, with Black people,
people of color.
Yeah, it's with indigenous
people who love science, intellectuals, like people who care about truth, right?
Yeah. Yep. September 6th, right?
There's so many people. M. Gunter writes, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. The principle guides me in my work and research. Yeah, I think that's the actual quote of Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
Well, Gerardo, you're a legend, and people are here for you. So thank you for making today happen.
Well, thank you. I think it was a good episode. I think this is really important to highlight. And like we said, we kind of agreed with Jacob as far as, well, yeah, there is definitely confusion, right? Like there's definitely duplicitous statements being said over the pulpit versus what's happening in the words and stakes or at BYU. So yeah, it's all great to highlight it because hopefully the church will keep bending in the right direction.
They will. They'll get it right eventually. They often do. And Jacob Hansen, when you're either excommunicated or you apostatize from the church, I hope I welcome you to come tell your story on Mormon Stories podcast. We'd love to have you.
It'll be awesome.
All right. Thanks, Gerardo. You're the best.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks to Julia and Maven in Brooklyn for all they do to make this possible. And thanks to our board, and thanks to all of you. Thanks to our donors who donate to make Mormon Stories podcast possible. Your monthly donations allow this to continue. Please go to YouTube and subscribe. Please follow us and like us. Click the bell. Please share this episode. You can also subscribe and follow us on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Please become a monthly donor. That's how we afford to do what we do. And yeah, be kind to each other and be good to each other. And give us your feedback. Feel free to comment on these episodes. We try to read every comment that's made. Feel free to email us. I do apologize for getting so angry. I don't know. Jesus got angry, so I guess I'm trying to be like Jesus today. But I hope I haven't been offensive or unkind. Hopefully, you can be spirited and not unkind and mean. But if I've failed, I apologize. It's just because this stuff touches me personally. Anyway, and I hate bullies. You guys take care, and we'll have more on this in the coming days, weeks, and months. Love you guys. And we'll see you all again soon on another episode of Mormon Stories podcast. Take care.